Guys, it's Sloppy Saturdays back at you guys with another video. And today we're going over what everybody is talking about, the dumpster fire that is the Cleveland Browns QB room. This QB room has 5 QBs, all with a little bit personality and a little bit of differences attached to them. When you talk about Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, and Joe Flacco. Now, Deshaun Watson isn't going to play. He's going to stay on that roster. But 4 quarterbacks are on this roster right now going into the season, and one of them has to go. We're going to talk about who is possibly the odd man out. And I brought this topic up to you guys, obviously, because of the Shedeur Sanders draft slide and all the hype that's around him right now and all the talk. But not only that, it is bothering me how much people think Shedeur Sanders is going to get laid up this job, how much he's penciled in as the starter, as a fifth-round pick. I think it is absolutely ridiculous, and how Dylan Gabriel is being treated like a scrub. Let's get right into it. Now, first off, getting into the veterans, you got Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. Kenny Pickett, obviously a standout QB in college, former first-round pick. Doesn't work in Pittsburgh. He goes to the Eagles, backs up Jalen Hurts. They win the Super Bowl. Obviously, again, really nothing has to do with him. And the Cleveland Browns pick him up as a bridge possible type starter. And Joe Flacco was previously on the Cleveland Browns as well as a bunch of other teams. Again, everybody knows him, a great veteran to have in the locker room and a guy that could definitely hold his own for some games still at about 40 years old. Those are the 2 veterans. And then you get into Dylan Gabriel, who got picked 50 picks ahead of Shedeur Sanders and is just getting completely disrespected. Now, for people that think that Dylan Gabriel could get cut or could be the odd man out, you are absolutely insane. There is no chance in hell that the Browns cut Dylan Gabriel. This was a guy that got picked in the 3rd round. If they were to cut him 2 months later, somebody would get fired. Somebody would absolutely get fired. And people are talking about Dylan Gabriel like he can't compete for this job, like he's a complete scrub. Let's go over his college resume. His college resume, Shedeur Sanders can't even hold a candle to. We're talking about a guy that lost once last year. We're talking about a guy that leads in passing touchdowns all time in FBS football. We're talking about a guy that's second in yards all time in FBS football. He holds all-time records in college football. Not only that, this guy was a Heisman candidate last year. He was in New York as a finalist. This guy's college career is absolutely absurd. So to think that he's a complete scrub, that he can compete with Shedeur Sanders, is insane. Now, Shedeur Sanders, obviously, I think, has a little more talent for the pros. Again, everybody looks at the size. Everybody hates on Dylan Gabriel's size. But again, you look at Dylan Gabriel, he's bigger than Bryce Young. He's bigger than Kyler Murray. He's bigger than Russell Wilson. All those guys look like they're going to work. Bryce Young is going to work in the NFL, and Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson already has. So it isn't out of the realms of possibility that it does work out. Not only that, people are still forgetting there's more invested in Dylan Gabriel than Shedeur Sanders. 50 picks ahead, about $1.8 million total more on that deal. I think Dylan Gabriel's deal is $6.2 million total, and I think Shedeur Sanders is about $4.6 million total. So, yeah, a little more invested on the deal as well. Now, do I think Shedeur Sanders has the most talent in this room? Absolutely. When you look at Kenny Pickett, when you look at Joe Flacco, those aren't long-term starters. And we had Shedeur Sanders ranked as a second-round pick. But again, the gap is very, very close with Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. I had Dylan Gabriel as a very underrated prospect. I had Shedeur Sanders as an overrated prospect. I would be lying to you guys if I said that I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to be a better pro than Dylan Gabriel. But again, it isn't out of the realms of possibilities that Dylan Gabriel gets his shot first. For Shedeur Sanders, he's going to have to prove a lot. Let's be realistic. This was a guy that everybody stood off of. Everybody stood off of him. This is a guy with a 5th-round pick invested in him. If his name wasn't Shedeur Sanders, that's nothing in investment. Absolutely nothing, a 5th-round pick. Not only that, with everything going on with the outside issues, he's going to have to work twice as hard as these other guys to beat them out, in my opinion. Again, will he get his shot? Yes. My prediction for this Browns QB room is that Kenny Pickett is the starter day one. I think Joe Flacco ends up being the odd man out. Again, even though he just signed him for $4 million, he might mentor them again in the offseason, in the preseason. But again, you can only have three QBs. I don't think they're cutting one of the rookies. I think they're keeping one veteran in Kenny Pickett. I think Joe Flacco's the odd man out. And then for Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, as long as one of these QBs doesn't hit the ground absolutely running and tears it up, I think both of them are going to get their shot. But I think Dylan Gabriel is going to come first. I really do. Again, 50 picks ahead, more money invested. I think he's going to get the first shot at this. But I think both of them, I think the Browns are going to do their due diligence. And I think both of these guys are really going to get their shot because, again, they're going to try to see if they struck gold in one of these standout college QBs. But not only that, we have to keep in mind that the Browns have two firsts next year, one of them being Jacksonville's, who, again, we don't know how they're going to turn out next year. They could have two very high picks in a loaded quarterback draft class. So they're going to want to see this year if they struck gold in one of these QBs, because if they didn't, they're going to dip in for a quarterback next year as they have two first-round picks. So, again, my prediction for this Browns QB room, Kenny Pickett, first starter. And then, again, these two rookies will eventually get a shot. Deshaun Watson will stay on the roster, even though I don't think he starts another game as the Browns QB. And I think Joe Flacco is unfortunately the odd man out, which is crazy to say for Joe Flacco. Again, he's been staying in the NFL for as long as he could possibly stay. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video because I think it is completely disrespectful how people are regarding Dylan Gabriel. Again, we're talking about a standout elite college QB, a guy that had a better career than Shedeur Sanders, and a guy that was drafted 50 spots ahead of him, and they're acting like he can't compete in this room. There will definitely be a lot of competition. It's going to be one of the biggest stories in the NFL, and there's a lot of personality in this room. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and we are out.